I, Harshit Goyal, Teaching and Research Associate at Gujarat National University, welcomes you all in the International Conference on Disability and Inclusion, organized by Bhumika Trust in collaboration with Enabling Unit and Equal Opportunity Cell of Hansraj College, Delhi University, and Gujarat National Law University Center for Disability Studies. The theme for today's sessions is Global Disability Inclusion, and the theme of the conference is Disability and Inclusion. As part of second session, we have paper presentations wherein three papers will be presented by the authors, as well as we have a session which would be taken by Dr. Madhura Nag-Chaudhary from Tata Institute of Social Science. The paper presentation would be chaired by Dr. Marisport from Gujarat National University. I take this opportunity to introduce our chair, Dr. Marisport. Dr. Marisport has 9 years of teaching experience at Gujarat National University. He is currently heading the GNLU Center for Disability Studies. His main subject domains area are arbitration, criminology, victimology. Also, Sir has deep interest in disability studies. Sir has authored many articles and had many publications in reputed journals. Sir, I request you to chair this session.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Harshit, and thank you, Bhumika Trust, for giving this opportunity. I just would like to adhere everyone. We have 15 to 20 minutes for presentation, right? So if any questions we have, we can take it at the end. Right? Is that fine, everyone? All the presenters, right? So if you are exceeding the time at the time of 15 minutes, Harshit will give a kind of intimation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that this is a rules with regard to presentation. So if at all any comments or questions, we can put it in the chat box, and depending upon the time, we will take the questions, right, in the chat box itself, right? So yes, Harshit, you may proceed with the presentation. Call them.
Yes, Mr. Grubakshi, I request you to start with your presentation.
Good afternoon to one and all present. Dear audience, today I will be presenting my paper on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. This convention was signed by the United Nations in 2007. First of all, I would like to cover some of the background before signing of the convention. Disability is a condition in which all the human beings are not at power with the able-bodied human beings. The disability is a condition by which the physical condition or mental condition hinders the person from cope up with the things as the able-bodied human beings. In 2001, there was a committee which was headed by the New Zealand, and New Zealand has done prominent work in the signing of the convention. It has done the negotiations between the countries, the national human rights institutions, by which they were able to sign the convention. In 2006, 13th December, in the 61st session of the United Nations General Assembly, the convention was signed. It has 50 articles. The first article gives the purpose of the convention. Second and third article provides the principles of the convention, and some of the terminologies have been defined in the convention, such as reasonable accommodation, and sixth and seventh article are specifically for the women and the children. They are subject to multiple disabilities, such as multiple discriminations which the males do not face. That's why the women empowerment has been given in the convention and giving the equal opportunity to them. And some of the principles from the Article 8th to 30th article are as follows, by which the convention provides the equal opportunity rights. The principle of the United Nations Charter have also been included in this convention, and in other conventions such as which are signed by the United Nations are also provides the principles of the disabled and it has been made accessible to the disabled. In this convention, the right of mobility, right to accessibility, right of the awareness of the disabled, and right of equal opportunity, and to provide the training programs for the disabled have also been provided. And in this convention, all the rights which are provided, it is recommended to the states to impose the rights for the disabled by their legislative as well as their administrative actions. Article 32 provides the mutual cooperation between the states is required to the mutual cooperation is required for the implementation of the conventions, provisions of the conventions. And in this convention, with the consensus of the other states, all the states, the amendments can be made, and the state parties have to meet biannually, and any state can denounce the convention with the notification. Now I would like to talk about Indian scenario in India. In 2016, the RPD Act, Right to Person with Disability Act, was passed on the lines of this convention, and some of the provisions as provided in this conventions have actually been taken from the convention and included in the act. And Supreme Court is also helping the disabled to define the provisions of the conventions, such as it has defined the reasonable accommodation in its judgments, and some of the rights such as the reservation in the promotion have also been given to the disabled. And now still the ground reality has to be checked and covered. If there are any loopholes, the state bodies and there is one chief commissioner of person with disability which is working to address the grievances of the disabled. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gulbaksh sir. The presentation was really insightful. Now I would like to invite Muhammad Imran sir and the interpreter Shreya Soni. Sir will give a presentation on the topic Digital Sign Language Lab, Accessible Curriculum for the Deaf. I would like to welcome sir.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Bhumika Trust for welcoming us here and giving this opportunity. I am from Haryana Welfare Society for the Persons with Speech and Hearing Impairment. My name is Imran Ahmed, and with me, Shreya is here. She is an interpreter. We are working together in Digital Sign Language Lab. And let's know more about DSL Lab. So when we talk about deaf education, it is the reality. It is actually sad that, many deaf people have been facing since years. I've also experienced the same problem since years. In India, there are about 700 deaf schools, but the teachers in the school are not able to deliver the concepts, the information properly in sign language. There are about 18 million deaf people in all over India, but they are not getting proper deaf proper education in the schools because the teachers are not able to sign properly, and there is this inequality for them in regard to education. They are facing many challenges because they are not getting accessibility in the school, not getting accessible curriculum. So how this problem can be solved? So with this initiative, DSL project has been established in Haryana Welfare Society so that the 18 million deaf people can get benefit from the videos that we create in our lab, and we are here working to provide quality education for deaf people in India and across the globe. So we are creating videos in different school curriculums, English, Hindi, geography, and different subjects. And we are translating those curriculum in Indian Sign Language. We also have voiceover and subtitles in the videos, and that we publish in our YouTube channel. That is for accessibility, so that the deaf people can gain more and more knowledge from those videos and get more information from them. So this will provide accessibility to all the deaf people across India. Why we are adding voiceover to the videos? Because the parents and the other sign language users can get access to the videos. They will understand that what the deaf signer is signing, what the information is being transmitted in the videos. So it is important. So that is why this project is really helpful and beneficial for the deaf audience. So there is this gap in deaf education. Here you can see in the picture that a person is standing on the bridge and he wants to go across the bridge, but he cannot because there is this gap. The same concept applies in the deaf education. There is a major gap in the education because, as we discussed, that there are about 800 deaf schools in India, but we have limited resources. We do not have sufficient resources that deaf people can use and learn from them. There are major deaf learners, and there are a lot of deaf population, but they are not able to understand because the teachers are not able to sign properly. Only 3% resources they have, but it is really difficult for them to learn properly in sign language. They are not proficient in sign language, the hearing sign language users. There are not enough deaf teachers. So that is the major challenges that they are facing. They are facing difficulties in their language. And also there is this discomfort that the hearing people feels like they are not comfortable in using sign language. This is the negative attitude and mindset in them. So if this problem will continue, so deaf people will face challenges in the further years also. So this has to be solved. So what to do for bridging the gap? It is really important to take initiative and bridge this gap, right? So small attempt is needed in changing the attitude and mindset. And deaf people, with deaf people, hearing people should work together to bridge this gap. It is really important to be open-minded and accept the sign language, involve in the deaf community, and reach out and provide accessibility to them. Learn sign language and work together in the deaf community. So it is really important that the hearing parents and the teachers also provide access to the deaf children, deaf students, so they will get accessibility in each and every field, from the home to the school and in every place where they go. It is important that hearing people must engage in the deaf community and discuss with them, know about their culture, know about their thoughts, share their experiences, so that they will learn more and more. This is how this gap will be fulfilled, and it will be helpful for them to develop and gain more knowledge about each and everything that is required for a person as a human being. Also, we have a lot of technology, so it also helps deaf people to bridge the gap in deaf education. So it will be helpful. So technology is also very important for bridging the gap of deaf education. Like parents can hear what the information is being transmitted in television and other social media, so they can transmit those information to the deaf people with the help of sign language. So in Haryana Welfare Society, there are 8 centers across Haryana, and this society was established in the year 1971. The president is the governor of Haryana, and earlier we had one center, but right now it's really expanded and we have almost around 8 centers. The main focus area of this project is to provide bilingual education, quality bilingual education, and early intervention. The focus area is also early intervention because the children who are deaf since childhood, they must get proper exposure of sign language in their critical period. So early intervention is really important for them. Also, we have different skill activities in the society. So it is helpful for the skill development of deaf people, and they will be able to, do self-employment and do other business by themselves. Also, accessibility. The society works on accessibility, provide accessible curriculum, and create videos. Also, these videos are helpful to the teachers because when they teach, they use the curriculum inside curriculum, and it supports them in teaching. The challenges that we are trying to overcome is the late identification and early intervention, because many students, they get admission in the school in the latest years of their age. So we are trying to overcome the gap and providing them proper exposure of sign language, so their language will develop and they get proper strong foundation in the language. Also, we see that there is a lot of communication barrier between parents and children when the child is deaf and the parents are hearing. So it is really important for the parents to learn Indian Sign Language. So when there are lots of deaf teachers in our society, so we are also conducting sign language classes, and teachers are teaching a sign language to the parents so that the children can learn sign language, and this gap can be, fulfilled, and they will be able to communicate properly with their child. We are also working on educational access. We are providing accessible curriculum to the students. So it is because it is really important, as we know that it's a major problem in India. And we are creating deaf-centric materials. We have a lot of interpreters in the society. So the main focus area is to provide quality education and improve the literacy skills of deaf people. So Dr. Sharanjit Kaur, the chairperson and vice president of the society, took initiative to start this project and establish Digital Sign Language Project. And IASTL Satyaprakash and the governor of Haryana supported this project really and inaugurated this project in the year 2019. And this project was established, and they always motivated this project and approved. So this project has been successful just because of them, the governor of Haryana and the chairperson of the society. And you can see that really the project has been successful because of the CSR partners that you can see, and the resources, the team members we are here in the team members that we are working in this project. Everything is supported by CSR partners, Colt, Cvent, Adani, and other CSR partners. So they have been really helpful for us for this project. So in Digital Sign Language Project, we have innovation, technology, deaf people create videos, deaf-centric, in a deaf-centric approach, and utilizes this approach. This is really empowering, and the deaf, in any level of the deaf people, that they create conceptual videos so that they will get clarity, proper clarification, so that they will get access in the videos, and it is really empowering for them. So it is really important that deaf people create the videos and developing concept and translate it in Indian Sign Language. We have our YouTube channel by the name of Sign Library, and we have different categories of videos you can see here. So the main focus area of DSL project is to provide accessibility, equity, and quality in the area of deaf education. The main focus is to clear the concept of the target beneficiaries. And the main objective is to improve the quality of education. As we know that there are 18 million deaf people across India. So they need quality education. So it is important for us to create the conceptual videos and spread the awareness regarding and the information properly. So it is also the main objective to provide awareness materials through innovation and technology. What do we have in our channel? We have school curriculum like English, Hindi, geography, and other different subjects. Not only that, we also have different other categories like general information, festivals and public holidays. We celebrate Holi, Diwali. So we make the videos of those festivals about and spread the information. We also create model stories and deaf kits and about deaf kids, role models, and information on COVID-19. Recently, we started creating videos on DHI curriculum and DTISL. Not only this, we also have a lot of other videos, and later on, we are planning to create higher education and bachelor level of videos. So how we work in this project? This project is totally led by deaf team. The preparation are being done wholly and solely by a deaf person. He reads the text and discuss the curriculum, the course curriculum with the other team members. First prepare the script, what is being written in the NCERT curriculum, and then they create a proper script that is totally deaf-centric, what they have experienced in their childhood, and relating to that real life experiences, they create the script, and then they discuss it with the team members that what is right and what is match, what is appropriate for the deaf audience, and this is how they create the curriculum. And it is not important to create the curriculum just like hearing people understand. It is totally deaf-centric way. And after doing that, the video editor put the visuals and graphics to the videos that is more visual for the deaf people. They, as we know, that they are very visually strong. And after that, videos are created, and that is handed over to the sign language interpreters, and then they put voiceovers and subtitles to the videos. And after doing that, these videos are being published on our YouTube channel. So this is how we do, and it is totally deaf-led. So it is really important that the videos that are created, that has been created, it is by the deaf person. So the videos that we are publishing on our channel, it is being viewed not only in India, but across the globe. Like many people from different countries are watching our videos, and it is really, a great thing for us that many people are liking the videos. The achievements that we have, got since 4 years is that we have got the Haryana State Award in the category of a barrier-free platform in the year 2018. Also, our project has been delivering the presentations in different conferences like NCED in 2019. We have also presented in Poland. Also, we have Visual School Library, like we're hearing people, read the stories and other books in their library. But similarly, we have a DSL library in our school so that they can get, videos in their proper access and in the proper sign language. And these videos are helpful to the teachers also for teaching. They learn from the deaf signers in the videos, and then they are able to teach. So it is really helpful. These videos are helpful for the teachers to teach and creating content in the society. So if you really want to know about our channel, so just click on this link and you can just have a look. Thank you so much.
Actually, Shreya, ask him to wait. I'm not asking the question, but in his paper, he actually communicated what are all the constraints deaf students used to face in their schools as well as college. Ask him to highlight whatever the constraints they face, how that these videos are, these kind of features are very, very important to the deaf students from the childhood to at least primary and secondary level. Right. So that is very, very important, because in his paper he has given that narratives.
So you want him to highlight right now?
Yes.
So majorly deaf students are facing challenges in their school, because the hearing teachers are not able to sign properly. As I have already mentioned, they are not proficient in Indian Sign Language. They do sign language just as gestures, not properly, not like deaf people. So they don't understand. The children don't understand what they are teaching. What is the meaning of that? I want to give you an example. For example, there are deaf students, okay, and the teacher asks them, how does it rain? So they say that there is a tap in the sky, and the rain comes from the tap. So it's not actually the proper information that is being transmitted to them. So the teachers must tell them in sign language that what is the reality, how does the rain come from. So then only they will be able to understand the concept. So the concept is missing, the information is not being transmitted by the teachers just because they don't know proper sign language.
Okay, and could you please explain that survey result which you have done? That is actually you missed in your presentation. Just show that one.
Shreya, you interpret?
Yeah, he is saying that these are the, we collect feedback form from the target audiences. They submit their forms and how they feel about our videos, and this is how we collect the data, and collect the feedbacks from them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. So Shreya, just ask him to be there, and you also be there. We will take the questions after the third once the third presentation is over. Right?
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Harshit, can we move for another third presenter?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for your presentation. We are really grateful for your contribution to the world of digital sign language. Now, I would like to present the next speaker to the panel. So we have Sheikh Mohammed Kash, sir. He'll give a presentation on the topic structural compulsion to institutionalization, time for invigorating with the educational practices for children with disabilities in Russia. We're really glad to have you on board, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, a very warm afternoon to all of you, those who are hearing me to different places. And first of all, thank you so much, Mr. Jayant, for accepting my paper for this international conference. Unfortunately, I'm suffering through throat infection. That's why I'm actually unable to submit my full-length paper. But as I have promised to Mr. Jain that within its stipulated time frame, I'll try my level best to submit the paper. I'm also grateful to Mr. Professor Mary Sports, sir. I've been following you since very long. In fact, I was there in the summer school, disability summer school last year in your institution, which you conducted online. So, but at the outset of this presentation, let me make out some preparatory ground so that people can understand, or it would be easier for people, those who are listening to me, can understand what I'm essentially going to talk about. So already the first presenter has prepared the groundwork by explaining what UNCRPD stands for, what are some of the key features of CRPD, and given the fact that one's first presenter has already talked about that, I'm not going to repeat those things again in my presentation. Secondly, I'm assuming that given the fact that most of you have joined this session after studying something about disability, so under that impression, it comes that you must be knowing what are the key models of disability studies, such as social model or right-based model or medical model or whatsoever. So I'm assuming that you all are aware with these models, and therefore I'm not going to get into the deep of that to those sorts of nitty-gritties of this paper. My job here is to get you acquainted with what are the key problems that people with disabilities in Russia are currently facing when it comes to inclusive education. Now, again, the term inclusive carries a tremendous weightage with it. It's not simply inclusive is not simply bringing people into the mainstream and giving them equal platform. I mean, I think Professor Marisport would agree with me that inclusivity is not merely about equality. It's much more than that. It's also about a collective feeling that you are a significant part of a society as like any other else. So unless that feeling comes in you, in the project of inclusivity is not going to be get finished, right? So this is what essentially I'm going to talk about in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Now, as of you all know that disability as a pervasive culture is worldwide known, right? But that becomes even more dangerous in the Russian context, because it has been guided all through the history. It has been guided through some uninvented, ideological forces. I hope you all guys must be knowing about the USSR, Soviet Union, and what ideological baggage it carried with itself, right? So disability is not something that is untouched from that reality. And this is something which has not remained untouched, in fact. It has come, the disability, the very explanation of disability, the very recognition of disability, both in the Soviet Union as well as in the Russian context, in the present Russian context, has not remained untouched or unaffected by the realities of that time. And this was very much reflected in 1995 Act that Russian Parliament passed for persons with disabilities, which essentially defined persons with disabilities through the medical model. As you all must be knowing that this was the period when people were countries, in fact, not people, countries were shifting their gears from medical model to the social model of disability. Countries started recognizing how social structures are creating barriers. It was Russia alone, I suppose, if not the only one, but at least in few countries, which sort of going on with the medical model, with the medical conception of disability in its policy, right? So it essentially defined disability as something which is health limitation, something that has to do with health limitation of a person. And given the fact that the policy had that kind of orientation towards persons with disabilities, it obviously then went on to provide social benefits to people with disabilities. And the accommodation pattern that it suggested, especially the rehabilitation one, it was matching with its definition. and that was institutionalization. As my paper, as is my paper, you know. You have institutions, educational institutions, where you have to put your children with disabilities in, and the state will take care of that, and you don't have to worry about that. That's your job. Your job is just to place your children, disabled children, into those institutions, and then you just, relax. Now it is the responsibility of the state, and everything is going to be managed by the state. You can't question them. So that sort of institution, that sort of culture that born after this 1995 act in Russia. But I think it would be even more prudent for me to explain some of the lineage, why Russia reached to this point. We should get into that detail as well. And of course, I'm not going to take you through all the historical events, but there are some very important ones, which I think I should put forth here, so that it would become much more easier for you to understand where the situation of persons with disability stands today. And it has come from somewhere, right? So, as you all know, 1917, we had the Russian Revolution. Now, prior to revolution, we had people with disabilities in Russia. Of course, it was though minority at that time, but it was a scattered minority, as one of the scholars from JNU would call it. It was a scattered minority. People with disabilities were there, but the problem was only warriors those who participated in Russian wars prior to 1917 were seen as disabled people, and those who got infected any sort of disease, or who are having who are born with some sort of health limitations or whatever, or who have got some who have received some disabilities because of some industrial accidents or general accidents or whatever, but they were not seen as disabled per se. Very strange, but very true, right? But the story got changed after the revolution, and the new system of definition of disability came in Soviet Union, with Lenin's that famous assertion that whosoever works get the benefit of eating. I hope you all must be knowing that, right? So with that assertion, with that sort of understanding, came the new imaginatory framework, which defined disability as something which has to do with the labor capacity. At this time, the labor capacity was in terms of how much labor capacity you have, how much you are able to work, how much you are able to contribute to the economy will define your status in the society. So this time, the disability carried this baggage of labor, but it again changed through the Act of 1932, and this is going to be the penultimate act that Soviet Union and the succeeding Russian Federation that had undertook actually till now. This was the penultimate act, and through this act, remember, this was the time when Stalin was at the helm of the affair, and you can imagine what Stalin has done to Soviet Union and what kind of activities that he introduced during his tenure, right? So subsequently, it impacted also in the definition of disability under the 1932 Act, and it went on to define it. It went on to look. It went on to actually, put disability into 3 categories. First of which was the severe category of disability. Those who were having absolutely no movement. That's what they call it. Those who are of no use. the theory of defectology, those who are aware of European, theory of disability. So theory of the defectology was there in the 1932 Act. And then there were remaining two categories, which was moderate and then less moderate, that sort of. So these were the three categories under which people were placed who were having some sort of health limitations. Now, as a result of this, what happened that, since the work was the defining aspect of disability till that point of time, people were literally forced into the workforce. Those who were having some sort of limited capacity to work, they were asked to match with the pace of normal people and to work and to complete the work with themselves and to compete with them, So there was this unmatched cruelty that was thrashed upon people with disabilities during 1940s and 1950s. Again, the story changed after the Second World War because of the war cult. Disability categories became much stricter than the earlier ones. Those who were in the first and second category were forced into third category, and they were expected to work and to produce more at par with the normal people, which was not earlier the case. Once Stalin got replaced by the new predecessor, again the story got again there came a twist in the story. And by the way, most of you must be very aware of the fact that it was Russian soldiers who bore most of the brunt of the Second World War. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean by that is the fact that I think nearly 10 million people received some sort of disability during the Second World War in Russia. And these are merely estimates. These are not the exact estimates. These are mere estimates, by the way. So disability became much more known, category in Russian Soviet Union society, so to call it. And it was this point of time when Russian rulers started establishing special institutions for persons with disabilities where their needs can be catered. In fact, there also came a time during 1970s and 80s when Soviet Union reached to its so-called extreme socialist level, or communism as they call it, right? And because of that, what happened that all the rulers started, in fact, delegitimizing the very existence of disability in Russia. वो एक होता है ना कि हमारा समाज एक ऐसे लेवल पे पहुंच चुका है कि now there is no problem in our society. This is what communism was, right? So that sort of situation was there during 1970s and 80s. But as I said, state was at the helm of the affairs when it comes to managing the activities of persons with disabilities, both in the areas of education as well as in the areas of health and employment. But obviously, with the cataclysmic disintegration of Soviet Union into 15 parts in 1991, gave tremendous, push to the situation of persons with disabilities. Now, what do I mean by that? Economic situation again got pretty much worse. State started withering away from its responsibilities. State was nowhere there in the activities, or the only institution that left in the Russian society after 1991 was the family. So as I said, state started withering away. It means that the responsibility of managing the affairs of persons with disabilities ultimately fell on the families. Now it is the families who have to manage, right? And there's this very famous article by Elena Porvina that says that it was essentially mothers who had to take the responsibility, not the fathers, because fathers were expected actually to work outside of the home and to bring some financial things and provide some financial support to the family. It was essentially mothers who took the responsibility, who came forward and took the and who actually provided education at their homes to their disabled children and so on and so forth. But what also happened was the fact that because state was not there to provide extra, social impetus to persons with disabilities, they were literally left, uh, um, left out in the hands of wild capitalists. Market was the dominant force which was managing the economic affairs of Russia after 1991. And given that you don't have any state measures or any social measures to manage your daily activities, you are left completely helpless. Right now, it was from this point onwards, families started putting their disabled children into institutions, and as I'll talk about the current situation. This was the time when people, wantedly or unwantedly, they had actually no choice. Actually, financial situation was not there. You must all be aware of the shock therapy and the doctrine of wild capitalism and so on and so forth. Now, people were helpless to do anything for their disabled children. So they had no options but to send their children to such institutions, which were managed by the states, which was managed by the Russian state. Sorry. As far as the statistics are concerned, during 1992-1993, there were 4.3 million people with disabilities in Russia, which accounted for about 3.2% of the total Russian population. But in 2015-16, the number rose up to some 11.4 million population of the total Russian population. And if we may to look at in the percentage value, it goes somewhere around 9.2% of the total Russian population. But having said that, as you must all be aware of the fact that in 2011, Global Disability Report came in, and it said that the general disability population across the world is around 15%. So 9% of the 9.4% of the Russian disability population was even lesser than the global estimate. So what I'm trying to basically highlight is the fact that even these numbers are not really exact numbers. These are mere, statistics. These are not exact statistics. So, as this movement of institutionalization got prominence during 1998, 1999, more and more state, regional state, not this time, not the Russian state, but regional states started establishing institutions, state-run institutions, or state-run institutions for persons with disabilities. And these institutions were established or were built outside of the society, outside of the, sometimes cities, sometimes villages, sometimes towns. So there was no actually connectivity between these institutions and the general society. And they were actually had no option to get out of this institution. If you get in the institution, that's it. You can't move out. That sort of provision was there. By the way, there's this famous, I mean, often people accuse Russia for calling their people, for calling their disabled people as invalids. Right? The term invalid comes from the from the French word, and which has its, root in the Latin word called invalidus, which means weak or incapable. But let me tell you something. This is not something. This is not the exact meaning of Russian invalidus. जैसे इंग्लिश में हम जब किसी चीज को कहते हैं, स्पेशली कोई बैड स्लैंग यूज करते हैं, तो उसको इतना इम्पैक्टफुल नहीं होता जितना कि हम उसे हिंदी में कहते हैं, स्पेशली गालियां. Right? So this is something. This is of the same sort that invalidity in Russian is not the same as is the case in other European languages, especially in English or in French. Anyway, so after 2000, after 2000 onwards, somehow, economy of Russia got some push, both from domestic as well as from foreign actors, and more political stability was achieved was achieved under the leadership of President Putin. And this had, again, as I said, disability gets never untouched by the social realities of its time. The status of disability again changed. And obviously in 2012, Russia got signed UNCRPD, and it stood for the rights of persons with stood up for the rights of persons with disabilities. But here the interesting part is, and I was, I think, discussing this with my professor in the morning on the phone. When it comes to international monitoring institutions such as IMF or World Bank or whosoever, if you look at Human Development Index or any sort of indexes, international indexes that tells you the position of your country in terms of poverty, in terms of economy, in terms of gender inequality and all. Sometimes these countries, such as European countries or Russia for that matter, they seem to be performing pretty well, pretty reasonably well, so to say. But is that the case with disability in those countries? Unfortunately, the answer is no, because they're not taking into consideration the aspect of disability while looking for, some of the measures. So this disability is somewhere missing. And this is why, if from the general standpoint, if you look at the performance of Russia at international level, in terms of economy, in terms of sports and all other things, Russia is performing reasonably well, especially well at, if we may to compare Russia with, let's say, Central Africa or Southeast Asia, right? But it is not performing as good as Scandinavian countries. And the problem remains that people with disabilities are confined in their institutions. They are not. Russia has actually not made enough attempts or enough provisions where parents can take their disabled children, and can admit them in their local schools and colleges, and can actually stand for inclusive education. So this is something that has not really happened till now. But as I said, Russia has signed UNCRPD 2012, and there's this change of wind in the policies as well. Now you have accessible environment policy in Russia, which was essentially introduced in 2010, and which meant for about 5 years, but it has got extended further till 2020. And the primary goal of that accessible environment policy is to make Russia accessible for persons with disabilities. Again, interestingly, why it is happening so? It's partly because in 2014, Russia had to host, Sochi, Winter Olympics. Oh, Paralympics, yeah. Right. So they had no option but to come up with such programs. So wantingly or unwantingly, Russia is taking some positive steps. But let me tell you, these are not enough when it comes to improving the status of persons with disabilities. Russia has to go a long way, has to go further in terms of standing for the rights of persons with disabilities, and also making sufficient provisions where people can go in their local educational institutions and can study with their non-disabled students. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Mesport, sir, do you have any questions for Sheikh Mohammed, sir, or in general for other presenters?
Hello. Yes, just I request the participants, please unmute yourself and ask any questions. Actually, there are some hands raised during the presentation, so I would like to know if there is any questions.
Attendees, do you have any questions? Kindly unmute yourself and you can ask directly, or you can put it in the chat box.
Rashmi, please locate Sadamani if she is there. If she is there, just check it. Otherwise, not, because she is also deaf candidate. So just locate it. If she is not there, then leave it.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Sir, she was there earlier, but she is not there.
No. Okay. Okay, then. Okay, then let me get into the comments section. So by the time, if we have any questions, we will ask. Right, with regard to first presenter, Gurpreet, whether he's here or not. Are you there? Gurbaksh Singh.
Mr. Gurbaksh Singh.
Okay. Anyway,
so if he is there in the meeting, but
okay, not able unmute. Okay, so with regard to Gurbaksh Singh paper, it is very in an initial stage. So he has to narrow down his research area, and he has to do some research. Either it is doctrinal or empirical, but he has to narrow down, because here in CRPD he just touch it, and here and there it's a kind of scattered. He has to narrow down and then get into the you can say that proper paper, right? So this is my observation. And with regard to second paper, it's an empirical research they have done, and they have done a wonderful study. But I feel that study could have been presented in a wider way. That's one observation. Apart from that, I would like to ask the presenter. So the question is, as a school student, as a college student, even the current position, how do you feel? Which kind of problems you have faced as a student, as a college student, and what are all the problems you have faced in the accessibility level, and what are the requirements which you felt, and how you come to this level, right? Just share it once.
Okay, thank you for your question. So since childhood, when I was in school, from class 1st to class 10th, I literally didn't understand anything at all what the teacher was teaching us, because the grammatical structure and the the language in which they were teaching us, we were just copies, and we were just doing copy paste, not anything at all, because we were not clear. The concept was not clear at all. The teacher was not using sign language in the school. But then when I went to my school, Is there any disturbance? Imran is asking. Shall I continue? All right. Okay, so when I moved to Indore Deaf Bilingual Academy, the other school, other deaf school, so where I saw the teachers were, using sign language, and the deaf students were learning a lot from them. So I found out the difference, like the school where I was studying in class 1 to class 10, and the school where I studied, since after class 11th. So there were, the teachers, they were using sign language. So that's the difference. So right now I am working in digital sign language lab, and I literally understood all the things what I missed during my childhood, because right now I am putting efforts myself, and I'm learning it from my team members, and we are sharing together. And also, I can make the videos that I can experience, that I have experienced, what I've challenges that I have faced. I don't want the students to face those same challenges that I have faced during my childhood. So right now I feel more empowered, just because I have faced those challenges, and now I am aware of the same problems. So I don't want it to be continued for the other deaf students. So now I understood that what kind of doubts students must have, because the interactive skills, I did not do anything when I was a child. I did not interact with my teachers, but right now for the students, it is really important them to question answer and learn from the teachers. So it's really important, so that I really missed in my childhood, and now I felt that I've really literally improved, and it is just because of working in this project I've improved a lot.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing your experience. Now, my another question to you: what about the people which you are meeting as from the deaf community? Because generally in deaf community it happens, they may go learn deaf language or sign language later part of their study or later part of their life. Let's say after 10 or sometimes 15. So, what about the gap matching? What do you suggest? How it can be managed?
Imran is saying, could you repeat the question again, please? Can you
Yes,
sign it again?
yes, especially.
Yeah, please sign it.
Yeah, I'm signing. Yeah.
May I go ahead, Rashmi or Shreya? May I
Yes,
go
yes.
ahead? Yeah.
Yes.
In especially in deaf community, generally it happens that they learn the sign language or even some common deaf signs a later part of their life. Let's say 10 years or 15 years. By the time everybody crossed their studies. So what about the gap? How it can be managed? What's your suggestion?
All right. So I have missed a lot during my childhood, and those who really missed, the later part of their life, they missed the communication, and they missed the sign language exposure. So yeah, the problem that can be, the solution is that there must be a lot of deaf teachers in India, and in every school a deaf teacher should be there, so that they can teach them in the in their proper time, so they can get proper education in their critical period or in their school. So right now we have only few deaf schools, like in the south we have National Institute of Speech and Hearing, and in the other parts of India. So we really need more sign language teachers, those who can teach the proper sign language, and in proper sign language, and the students can get access in education, so that the children will be able to learn proper knowledge, to gain proper knowledge, and get proper information from their teachers. So it is really important. So that is the only solution, that the teacher should be there. And earlier there were no awareness, and there were a few deaf teachers, and right now people are more aware, and they know about sign language, and it is really great and nice opportunity for us. So we really want the society to understand about the deaf community and spread awareness about us, so that they will be able to learn more and get quality education.
Yes, Shreya, please stay there. One last question from my side for the speaker. Especially if you look at the deaf community, what about their job opportunity? How many people are getting the job? Because their childhood learning is lacking. what about their performance and how they are going ahead of with the higher studies? This is one thing. Second thing, what about their other language barriers? Let us say we have Hindi and English. Some states we have other regional languages. So are you going to make videos for bilingual sign languages or only English? If you are not making only English also, there may be some issues. So what you are going to do for that? Two questions I have asked together.
So I will answer your first question. So regarding the job opportunities, so yes, deaf people are really not getting, more job opportunities because they are, the skills are lacking in them just because they are not getting proper education in their child. So it is interrelated. If they will get proper education, then they will be able to, their literacy skills will improve and they will get proper education. But the people in the society of different sectors are not believing that they can do anything. So, and they are not providing them job opportunities. So this is the thing that is really, disappointing. So Haryana Welfare Society is providing, job opportunities for to the deaf people. But really, like many associations and many institutes are believing that no, they cannot do that because, and they are just believing that hard of hearing or the person who can, speak a little, they can get job, but not the proper deaf. So this is the one thing that they are facing, challenges for jobs. And the other thing is, you are saying that we are right now we are making videos in Hindi and in English. We are putting the voice, but if in future, if people will demand us, like in Gujarati language or other language, so we will definitely create videos in other languages too. But right now we have videos in Hindi and English language. So there is, we are not facing any challenges. And it is general. It is for, Hindi and English language is basically used by general public and they understand it. But if we will get demands of, to create videos in other language too, then we will definitely do the same thing in future.
Okay, thank you. Just wait for a minute. If there is any question from you, we will let you know. Okay. I am moving for the time being. I am moving to other presenter.
Thank you.
Yes, Sheikh, are you there, Dr. Sheikh?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Sheikh, yeah. Yes, thank you for your wonderful presentation. Especially you have focused on Russia. I would like to know why you have targeted Russia. Anything special or something which made you to? May I know the reason?
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you for the question. And so actually, in my, I did my master's from CPS JNU, Center for Political Studies.
Okay.
And then for my MPhil, I shifted to international politics with a special, with a area-specific studies.
Okay.
And for that, I went on with the Russian Federation. And in my MPhil thesis, actually, I was working on human development issues in Russia. I was looking at some of the problems that at the level of human development. But then I eventually I landed up with an understanding that when Russia was really performing pretty well.
Okay.
Like I think Russia ranks somewhere around 50, 45, somewhere around that. But being a person with disability myself, being a person with visual disability myself, I thought like let's learn about the standard or like the living standard of persons with disabilities in Russia. Then I came to this realization that it has been often said that Russia is a country where you have ideological forces working alongside economy and politics, right? But that is not really so much the case when it comes to disability. Yes, it has worked in the past, but it is working right now because given the fact that you have Putin being the president saying that Russia wants to be a global superpower in the near future. But is that the same person focusing on the lives of persons with disability? The answer is no. So this is something where I thought I think I can contribute. I had studied. I had
Actually,
joined.
your study actually given an indication, because if you say whenever Russia, people often connect with communism, but communism generally talks about equal treatment, especially equal treatment in a sense, not treating everyone equal, but equal protection, including reasonable accommodation, which recognize that. But what happened to Russia? Because when the Lenin actually given that option, but what actually happened, especially that ideology, where it not connected to, especially other aspects, economic aspect, they try to redistribute in the form of, you can say that, some kind of socialistic approach, but where it went wrong with regard to disabilities, why it that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said in my presentation, also there was this specific time frame. Let's say 1977, just to be specific.
Yeah.
The rulers at that time, it was, I think, Brezhnev, if I'm not wrong, who declared that Russia has reached to the level of communism. Now, communism is considered to be the highest, standard when it comes to managing the equal affairs in the society, not merely in terms of protection, but also in terms of opportunity and everything, in terms of accommodation, reasonable accommodation, as UNCRPD would talk about, right? But this was merely, the perception of that particular ruler, not the reality. Unfortunately, there was not just persons with disabilities, but there was many other communities,
Yeah.
especially like women's, let's say, or those who were not because of disability, but because of any other reasons, who were not really able to contribute equally at par with general people in terms of employment. I'm saying, in terms of labor, I'm saying, they were looked down, by the society, because they were considered as something which is as a threat to the society, right? So in that same in that term, I think persons with disabilities were always have always remained actually marginalized. There came the time in 1950s actually, and I think this is very unique to all the audiences, that this was a time when status of persons with disabilities in Russia was actually appreciated, celebrated to a large extent. I always say, whenever I talk about disability, whenever I talk about the marginalization of persons with disabilities, I always say that we being a community, we should always celebrate our diversity.
Yeah, disability.
Instead of merely talking about some of the problems, some of the, obviously these are the things which are going to be stay there forever.
Yeah.
These things are not going to be wiped out forever. But this is, I mean, we have to come forward and we have to celebrate this diversity. We have, I mean, just imagine how many categories do we have.
Yeah,
it's enormous. It's enormous, right? And still how many of us we really know about those categories? How many of us how many of us we are really promoting them? And then there was this Professor Marisford. There was this time when all these ideologies, or where all these studies which were produced by Western scholars, where especially when it comes to psychoanalytical studies in addressing the mental issues, mental illnesses of people. All this Western Western scholars' contribution were just ignored, simply ignored by the Russian rulers, by saying that this was a part of bourgeois
yes.
conspiracy.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Sheikh, actually, we have one more question. Then I will back to you. Sadamani is there. She is deaf, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So we will take that question. Then I will get back to you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes. Sadamani, please go ahead.
Good morning to all of you, to the president and Zayan sir, Hansraj College, I'm heartily saying thank you to Hansraj College. They have given opportunity to me. Either it will be any type of disability, like they can be oralism or braille lippy or deaf student. Interpreters or subtitle. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Rashmi, ma'am, you are audible.
Yes.
Okay. She is telling to all of you, thank you to all disability who have participated in this program. For interpreters, for blind, to everyone. Sir, she want to ask a question, but I think she is not signing. I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
She is asking, Hansraj College have given accessible for blind people. They have given braille lippy something product. They have given wheelchairs and many things they have given to many disability, but they have not provided anything for deaf people. Then what about us? What they are giving to us?
Definitely, I really I know this. Okay, but we are planning to start the alarming for the deaf people, as well as we are planning to start one sign language center. Okay, with the sign language interpreter, the personally sign language interpreter in our college. Okay, we are planning. We already start the sign language uh, a committee in our college, so it's about to plan. Okay, we can say that we will soon announce this thing in a publicly. Okay, so don't worry about it, we are planning it. Okay, so soon you will know that we have a sign language interpreter in our college as well, and a lots of work definitely we will do for this area as well. It's fine. Okay, soon, ma'am, don't worry about it. Okay, we are working on it. We are working on
She
it.
is telling we want subtitle also in everything. So
Yeah,
that also she's asking.
we already have, means we already have the sign language on the different rooms and the other places. Okay, but not in a more not in a more sense. Okay, but still we are planning, and definitely soon we will provide all these things. Okay, we are working on it. Okay, sorry, I'm not getting.
Wait, sir, because after observing, she will interpret you.
Yeah, okay.
She is asking if deaf people want to apply in Hansraj College, so they can be passed in that college.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there is no interpreter, so what they will do?
I think, as per my knowledge, one people already study in our college from BCom honors. Okay, he is from the deaf. Okay, but he is still working in our college and studying in our college in BCom honors. So I can't say anything, but still people in our college. Okay, so definitely we will also provide a different extra benefit. Okay, to these people, but this time we have one student in our BCom honors. Okay, so the college is accessible you guys as well, for you guys as well. Yeah, sorry.
So, wait, sir, she will interpret you.
Anything else?
Network problems. I don't know.
Okay.
Ma'am, there's a message
Yes,
from
please.
ma'am.
I think
That-
she have sent before.
Yes,
Now
what
it's
I want to
coming.
know is same admission process for deaf students.
Like a normal one. Hello.
Yes,
Go
sir,
ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
telling.
Go ahead.
How they will know about everything, like any website and all? They can
From
know?
our college website, as well as we have an enabling unit, the separate unit for the person with disability in our college. Okay, so you can visit our college as well and visit the enabling unit. Okay, there is a one person who will help you. Okay.
ADM, she's asking about that is ADM.
What is KDM? I don't know.
I think enabling disability unit.
This is the enabling unit. Okay.
AU.
Yes, yes.
She is asking about admission and all, so she can go through there everything.
Yeah, all this information coming on the website. So please go through website. Okay.
Okay.
And if you need a little extra assistance, so please go and visit our college and visit the enabling unit. They will help you. Okay.
Okay.
She is telling if some deaf student will ask to me, I will inform them.
Oh, thank you so much.
It is possible, no? They can study there.
Yeah, definitely, it is possible.
Okay. Okay, Arun sir, and thank you, Rashmi. Just tell Shradhamani we have time up for next speaker, so
Yeah.
we have to end the presentation session. Actually, Sheikh, I have one observation for you. With regard to that, since you have spoken about Russia, have you gone through the historical background of USA? Because during that internal war, right? That 14 famous for 13, you might aware, right?
Yeah.
That time, lot of people were disabled due to war, and those people were neglected, especially even Lincoln period also neglected big issue. If you wish, you can also work on that also. This is
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, because many of the times this thing often neglected this area.
Yeah,
Also.
actually, I mean, there's this person in JNU.
Yeah.
I think you must be aware of Umul. Her name is Umul.
Okay.
She has worked upon the warriors, disabled warriors of Soviet Union.
Yes.
I mean, that on that front, she has worked on.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sheikh. And it was wonderful presentation. Even all the presenters have done a good job, and I appreciate and I acknowledge that they have done great work. And I wish both supposed to proceed and further publish their research work. Okay, with this I am ending this presentation session. Now over to you, Harshit. I think ma'am has joined. Jane said maybe have a break of 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm there. Hello, I'm on.
Yes,
you're audible.
So I was just talking to ma'am. Ma'am is just coming for a minute, in a minute or two, so we can take a break.
Yes, sir. At least for 5 minutes we can have a break. Then we can start the session. This is my suggestion.
Okay.
जितनी धूप तेरी उतनी ही मेरी, जितना चांद तेरा उतना ही मेरा, जितनी धूप तेरी उतनी ही मेरी, जितना चांद तेरा उतना ही मेरा, बादल हो या आसमां, राहें हो या कारवां, एहसास हो ना लगाव का, मिलके कहेंगे हम, हमें हक है, हमें हक है बराबरी का, गर्व से जिएंगे हम, हक है बराबरी का, गर्व से जिएंगे हम, गर्व से जिएंगे हम। जिएंगे हम। नजर होना करुणा की, भाव होना दान का, गिरते को उठाया तो अंदाज हो बस प्यार का। हो नजर होना करुणा की, भाव होना दान का, गिरते को उठाया तो अंदाज हो बस प्यार का। स्नेह को है जानता, स्पर्श को है पहचानता, स्नेह को है जानता, स्पर्श को है पहचानता, है यही महानता, एक साथ रहेंगे हम। हमें हक है, हमें हक है बराबरी का, गर्व से जिएंगे हम। हक है बराबरी का, गर्व से जिएंगे हम, गर्व से जिएंगे हम, गर्व से जिएंगे हम। तेरे जैसा हूँ चाहे दिखलाऊं ना मैं, रंग वही सारे मुझ में झलकाऊं ना मैं। तेरे जैसा हूँ चाहे दिखलाऊं ना मैं, रंग वही सारे मुझ में झलकाऊं ना मैं। अंधेरों को दीप में, आंसुओं को सीप में, हार को बदल के जीत में रख देंगे हम। हमें हक है, हमें हक है बराबरी का, गर्व से जिएंगे हम। हक है बराबरी का, गर्व से जिएंगे हम, 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 गर्व से जिएंगे हम।
Good evening, ma'am. On behalf of Bhumika Trust, I, Harshit Goyal, Teaching and Research Associate at Gujarat National Law University, welcome you in the international conference organized by Bhumika Trust on the theme of disability and inclusion. I take this opportunity to introduce ma'am before she starts her session. Dr. Madhura Nag-Chaudhary, Assistant Professor at Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai, heads the Center for Disability Study and Action at School of Social Work. She has done her MSW from College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketan, University of Mumbai, and she has done her PhD in Social Work from Washington University in St. Louis at USA. Ma'am has authored many articles and related with disability studies. Ma'am, we are very honored to have you on board today, and we are very eager to listen to you. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Harshit. Just one correction, I no longer chair the Center for Disability Studies and Action, but I'm a very active part of that center.
Oh, okay. Sorry, ma'am.
And so you're with Dr. Nageshwar Rao, is it?
Yes, ma'am. I'm working with research division as teaching and research associate, and Mr. Nageshwar Rao, Professor Nageshwar Rao is the dean of research division at GNLU.
Right, right.
And Dr. Marisport is also here. He is the head of GNLU Center for Disability Studies at GNLU.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Nice to have to meet new people here. We haven't had a chance to meet in person, but it's a real pleasure to meet everybody online.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought about, you know, the whole inclusion is something that one is continuously thinking about, struggling with, talking about. Right now, while we are, you know, working online, I am actually staying in a retirement community with my parents. So I am around a lot of different people with different kinds of impairments as they age. And I have the opportunity to observe every day how people manage and how people work around their impairments. And we live in an environment which is much more accessible than most other places. So we have appropriate ramps with the proper gradients, we have grab bars, bathrooms have grab bars. So, you know, it is interesting to actually see what happens when people, when they have impairments and they live in an accessible environment, how their life changes. So I'll begin with the example of my mother. My mother is an elbow crutch user. She acquired her disability 8 years ago. And, you know, when we move out of the compound of this retirement community, there's a lot of difficulty in maneuvering or visiting a market or going anywhere. But, you know, when she is in this compound, Akshit, could you please mute yourself?
Yes, ma'am. I am already on mute. I'm just.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah. So what I was saying was that, you know, so when, but in this compound, she walks at top speed. My father, who has no disability, has difficulty keeping up with her. She visits people. She does her own, you know, she visits her friends. She goes out. Half the time, sometimes we don't know where she is. So long as she's in this compound, she's very independent and she does her own thing. You know, she has her own life. So I think that is the difference that inclusion actually makes, or having an accessible environment actually makes in people's lives. What I wanted to talk about today, like Harshit said, I'm a trained social worker. I think in terms of interventions, and I think in terms of how do you actually change people's minds. And, you know, if one thinks about things in terms of the social model, it's about changing the minds of people who are currently non-disabled, you know, to think about the large diversity that we have around us that seems invisible, but, you know, it's all there for everybody to see. So I will be quickly sharing my PowerPoint. Is that okay? Is that enabled? Can I do that?
Yes, ma'am. You can.
Okay. All right. So as social workers, one of the things that we do is to work with people. Our main goal is to work with people. One of the ways in which we do that is through what we call community education, you know. So how we use community education as a device or a method to change people's minds about, you know, how they view disability, or what they think of disability, or the fact that they don't think about disability at all, you know, and they are not encouraged to think about disability at all. As a social worker, I have faced many situations where people have asked me, "Arey, so it's such a disability is such a depressing field. Why you want to work in this field?" And I keep trying to explain to them that no, it's not. It's a very interesting field to be in, and it's an education that I get as I'm in it, you know. So, all right. So my presentation is called Clearing the Path for Inclusion. I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, the whole issue of disability, diversity, and inclusion. So as we know, according to the WHO figures, about 15% of the world's population has a disability, and 80% of the disabled population lives in developing countries like India. So when we think about inaccessibility or exclusion, it's not just from physical spaces, it's not just from, government schemes, it's also about negative attitudes. So negative attitudes serve as the most powerful barriers against the inclusion of people with disability in all aspects of social belonging, membership, and functioning. This means that they're excluded from education, healthcare, livelihood, employment, as well as family and social life. So we're talking about all of these when we talk about exclusion or the lack of inclusion. And so when we talk about attitudes are very deep-rooted in cultural assumptions and values of a society, and they need to be addressed in order to move forward. So, there are a lot of beliefs कि भाई वो ग्रहण चंद्र ग्रहण के टाइम कोई पैदा हुआ तो उस वजह से उसको डिसेबिलिटी है, उसके माता पिता के दुष्कर्मों की वजह से उसको डिसेबिलिटी है, उसको उसके पिछले जन्म में उसकी डिसेबिलिटी उसके कुकर्मों की सजा है disability. So there are all sorts of very negative belief systems that people have about disability. So the idea is, how do we change this? What can we do? And also the other lack of awareness that is commonly found is that people with disability themselves are a very diverse and heterogeneous group. There are all kinds of people even within this spectrum. And when we talk about disability, it's not one kind of disability or one kind of impairment or one kind of issue. We're talking about a lot of different things, different groups of people with different differing needs, which are unique to each person based on the nature and severity of their impairment and the extent to which the physical environment affects that person's individual functioning. So when we think about the social model, disability is an experience dependent upon how society is constructed socially and politically with regard to particular medical conditions. So, I mean, we see this, right? The fact that a person like my mother can be so independent in her own space and in her retirement community, but the moment she steps out, she is dependent on her family to look after her, dependent on her family to navigate spaces, dependent on her family to take care of her in various kinds of, particularly when she travels. So there are all these issues that come up, right? It is basically because of how society is constructed and how people look at this issue. So the social model has always talked about disability as a form of social oppression, which is resultant of social arrangements that restrict activities of persons with impairment by placing social barriers in their way. So what I'm going to talk about is interventions to remove social barriers, to break down social barriers, to help people rethink, or those people who have not thought at all, to help them think. So people with different disabilities experience exclusion and barriers in different ways and to a lesser or greater extent, right? So there is one issue is of disability as a whole. The other issue is even within that, the lack of understanding of people, of each other's difficulties, right? So when we talk about how people perceive disability and what their exposure is to disability, not all persons with disability are perceived the same way by communities. People find certain disabilities more acceptable than others, where the most liked people are people who are most like themselves or the larger community. So, people will say, ki, "Arey, aapko to kuch hua nahi hai. You are not disabled. You are like us." So that is where their understanding. A lot of times people kind of see a person with disability as some alien, pata nahi kahan se utar ke aaya hai, ki wo bahut hi alag hai. But so even within people having disabilities or impairments, the ones who get accepted with the most amount of ease are the ones who are who appear the least different, or behave the least different. Often people hesitate to include persons with disability due to lack of exposure or the existent stereotypes in their mind, or due to the overall invisibility of the disabled population. Because there are so many people that one encounters who have never met a person with disability, who have never interacted with a person with disability. So they only know what they have heard from other people, or what other people tell them, or what books tell them, or what movies tell them, or what YouTube tells them, right? So there is that whole issue that because physical spaces are not accessible, people are not able to, meet this group of people, or they're unaware of this group of people. And that causes its own kind of problems, right? So when you talk about, when I'm talking about community education, what is community education? Community education is a tool that people can use to change the whole situation with regard to exclusion. Because community awareness and interaction is the key to creating inclusion. People, when the community sees the person, when the community interacts with the person, when the community is able to have some kind of, give and take with the person, that's when the inclusion becomes a possibility. Because until then, the person is outside of the community. The person is not seen as a member of the community, right? So community education programs that we do, so when we do interventions related to community education, essentially the idea is to bring about a positive, meaningful personal contact between persons with disability and the larger community, since the fact of isolation is the breeding ground for myths and stereotypes. So something that you have not seen, something that you have not heard, something that you have not experienced is what creates a lot of misunderstandings. So if we want to have an understanding, it is all about an exposure. It's all about an interaction. It's about interaction as equals. It's about, seeing the person for what they are, right? So community education cannot only be about providing information about disability, because see, information to yaar Google Scholar pe, Google pe, is pe, us pe, phone pe, WhatsApp pe mil jata hai, but information is just that. Information is not knowledge. Information is not going to really necessarily change people's behavior, right? So people and communities have to be helped to overcome their reluctance or their feelings of inadequacy in relation to interacting with persons with disability. किसी से भी मिलने जुलने का जो डर होता है, वो कैसे जाएगा? उस व्यक्ति से मिलके, उस व्यक्ति से बात करके, उस व्यक्ति को जान के. So when we think about community education, that's the goal, that's the idea, and that's the thought. So moving on. When we say, how does community education address public attitudes? It focuses, the idea is to focus on translating public sympathy into action. So, very often, I remember as a child, and I remember even today, the most frequent sort of image that people have in their minds is that a disabled person is a beggar, or there is a sympathy for the person, or there are people, organizations that will come and say हम अपंग व्यक्तियों की देखभाल करते हैं, हमें पैसा दीजिए. So people say कि अच्छा ये पुण्य का काम है तो हम आपको पैसा देंगे. So they are willing to contribute money, but we don't want to see the people that we contribute money for. We don't want to interact with the people we contribute money for. We contribute money because it is the thing to do, or it will make us create the impression of being a better person, or for religious sense or whatever it is, but most people are perfectly happy not to involve themselves with the person himself or herself, right? So that is what needs to that has to be the focus. That is the change that we want. People in the community also sometimes have mixed attitudes, or they may be reluctant to interact due to mixed feelings, So where they see themselves as able-bodied, and therefore the person with disability as other, that is unusual, atypical, unknown. So there is an interesting history to this. I don't know if you all know this, but in the past, people with disability were included as part of circuses, part of fairs, part of such मेले में भी ऐसे व्यक्तियों को रखा जाता था. टिकट लगा के लोग देखने जाते थे कि भैया ये कि क्या बला है, कि what is that person, because the person was different looking or had different was essentially seen as different. and so unique, and so therefore, something to be looked at almost like an object. So this kind of a sort of a dichotomy, or this kind of a thinking has been there, and historically it's been there. Even today you will see it. So the idea of a person with disability being as abnormal, as deserving of charity, where they are, it's always a situation where the person is a taker but not a giver. But the idea behind, and if we really want inclusion to happen, if we really want attitudes to change, then it's very important to change that image and to say that the person with disability or impairment is not just a taker. They have a capacity to give and a capacity to give a lot, and they are people who can be there as equals. So the whole idea of reciprocity is something that also needs to be somewhere brought in. So a lot of people also feel very afraid कि अरे मैं कुछ गलत बोल दूं तो, अरे मैंने कुछ गलत कर दिया तो, right? So there is a feeling of incompetence to deal with a person with disability because they are different, or they fall within the purview of specialists and professionals. So they say कि अच्छा ये तो डॉक्टर का काम है, ये तो फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट का काम है, ये आम जनता का इससे कोई लेना देना नहीं, right? So this is another sort of belief system that we have to change. It's and a lot of people see it, and this is seen, I mean, this is there about lots of different groups of people, but particularly, people with disability, people who are elderly. A lot of young people say, अरे इसका मेरे से क्या लेना देना है, तो मैं इसके बारे में क्यों सोचूं, या इसके बारे में, इनके बारे में इनके साथ क्यों इंटरेक्ट करूं, इससे मेरे को क्या मिलने का है. So the thinking is that this is something that does not affect that individual and therefore is of no concern, right? But society doesn't function like that. We have to think. So the idea is, what do we do to change these kinds of thinking, this kind of belief? So when we talk about creating inclusion, when we talk about addressing these attitudes, when we talk about saying that no, having a disability is everybody's issue, it is everybody's concern. People are not divided into disabled and non-disabled as two different categories of people. People are not, it doesn't make sense to isolate one group of people, So our interventions need to focus on how do we want to go about changing this? Our interventions have to focus on, one, empowering all people with and without impairment to appreciate the diversity of strengths, along with the differing capacities and barriers at individual and societal levels. So the idea that everybody has strengths, the idea that people are different. There is no one kind of person. There is no one normal person against which everybody else is categorized as abnormal. There is no such thing. So it is important to help people to come to that conclusion, number one. Second is focus on transforming the mindset to one that embraces, respects, and accepts diversity of appearance, behavior, and functions, and spurring action to cultivate justice and equity for all, right? So we have to help people to embrace and respect diversity. Diversity, not just in terms of, okay, caste, class, whatever, but also in terms of how people look, in terms of how people behave, because most often people with disability are rejected based on what? Based on how they look. कि इसका तो ये तो अजीब ही दिखता है और अजीब तरह से चलता है और अजीब तरह से खाता है, या उसका so one is something related to appearance or functioning, the other is related to behavior. The person behaves differently, so their social interactions are different. A person with autism will have different manner of interacting socially than other people, because that is the nature of their impairment, right? So those things will happen. But can we accept these differences, and can we look at how we can ensure justice and equity for everybody, keeping in mind all the differences that they may have? and then seeking to cover multiple stakeholders in relation to persons with disability and elicit participation for multiple quarters. So, addressing one group of people is not enough. We're talking about only the government is not enough, because the issue of disability or the issue of respecting this diversity in people, in human beings, is something that is for everybody, So it needs to be looked at in terms of educating the police force, educating bus drivers, conductors, the community level health workers, the community level ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers in our context, addressing children who are in school because they are the next generation, addressing children, young people who are in college because they are the youth and they are going to be the ones who are going to move things in this country, right? So we have to look at all the stakeholders that are there, right? And essentially the stakeholders is pretty much just about the entire population, right? So how do we get everybody involved, right? And how do we ensure that, everybody participates, right? So this is the idea that needs to happen in order for society or for inclusion to happen on a larger scale, right? So what I'm going to talk about is, since my profession is teaching and I am associated with a campus, I have done something on a very small scale, but I hope that, it can be used at a much larger scale with other groups of people so that we can start a conversation, because all changes begin with a conversation, right? So we need to, when we have a conversation about this issue, we are acknowledging that this issue exists, right? And once the conversation starts, people are forced to think about the issue. And once they are forced to think about this issue, the chances are they will also act on the issue. So that's how one hopes to move through this change. So this is an activity that we have done, or a workshop that we do on the Tata Institute campus every year for our students, for our staff, for our faculty, because we believe that our entire, all the people on our campus who form the campus environment should be inclusive in the way that they interact with students with disability, with faculty with disability, with staff with disability, and with each other and with other people when they go out into the world, right? So this is a message that we want to give to the young people coming to our campus, because they are the next generation who are going to make a difference. So, so I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about what we do. And then, maybe we can have a little bit more discussion about what I have said today, right? So, Jayant, Harshit, how am I doing on time? Are we good?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So,
it's okay, ma'am. You can take your own time. It's good time.
All right. Okay. So, what we call this is the Challenging Challenges Workshop. It's an activity that we've been doing since the year 2012 or 2011. It's a campus experiential activity workshop program, which is done with faculty, staff, students, with and without disability. So in this, we have people who participate. We encourage everybody to participate. Participation, of course, is voluntary. The objectives of this workshop are to have an experience of what it is like to function with an impairment, to be sensitized to nuances of impairment and foster empathy for those living with impairments, to create awareness leading to behavior change within oneself and while interacting with others, both with and without impairment, and in society, to allow for experiences to contribute to transforming the narrative of impairment in education and in society from one of deficits to one of ability to deal with challenges related to having an impairment. So we want to have a positive conversation. We want to change whatever little conversation is happening on this issue, right? So how do we go about this? So more often than not, it is students from my center who are trained and who themselves undergo a whole series of experiential activities, and then they conduct the activities. We also usually like to have our students with impairments lead activities because they know what that situation feels like and they know it the best. So we try to involve that group of students. We also like if other students want to come and volunteer and join us, so we train them also. We've done this activity not just on campus, but we've done it with rural school teachers. We've done it with panchayat members. We've done it with community workers, with ASHA workers, with Anganwadi workers, with so we've done it with a multiple groups of people. We've done it in a slum community, which is an open community. So the idea is to start the conversation and then help people to change their minds, change their minds, change their behavior. We don't say that, please behave, change how you behave. We just ask people to rethink what they know or what they have heard or what they have seen. And we try to provide them with a counter perspective, right? So what happens on that day? Usually it is held as a day-long workshop, which is open to all on campus to participate. A team of master students are trained by themselves doing experiential activities related to providing an experience of different types of impairment. The students then conduct the activities for the rest of the participants. So usually we start in the morning and we continue into the evening. So depending on when when staff is free, when faculty is free, when different people, whenever they are free, they come in and they participate. We encourage them to participate in all the different activities. So we have a series of experiential activities, each providing an experience of a different type of impairment. So for example, we have what is known as trust. For visual impairment, we do activities like trust walk, cane walk, object identification, currency identification. So what happens is the trust walk activity, for example, we do it in pairs. And so one person is blindfolded, the other has to just give verbal instructions, not touch the person, but just give verbal instructions to help them reach from point A to point B. So they go for a walk like that, and then we ask them to change. So the partner who was giving instructions then gets blindfolded, and the other partner has to give instructions verbally to walk them around the area. Now the idea here is to get them to understand what would it feel like if they could not see, and how difficult it is to maneuver spaces. Because typically there are no tactile tiles, there is no auditory signals that are there telling you which classroom is classroom number 5, which classroom is classroom number 8. So none of that is there. So to find your way around can be very challenging, and that is the idea is for the people who are participating to develop an understanding of the same. We also have what is known as the white cane walk. So we teach people how to use the white cane, just rudimentary, how to utilize the white cane, and let them have an experience of walking with a white cane. And more often than not, we get some of our visually impaired students who are themselves white cane users to explain how to use the cane. So, and they are the ones who actually supervise also with the help of other students with regard to conducting this activity. Then we have things like object identification, where you give them, say, a phone or a pen or some object and say, okay, now what is this object, and can you identify it just by touching it, right? Then, or touching it or smelling it. So sometimes we give them spices, sometimes we give them, say a toothpaste or some object like that to figure out what it is, right? Sometimes we also ask them to identify coins and notes. And this has been a particularly difficult situation because there are times when our visually impaired students also have difficulty identifying. And so it's been a very interesting experience, because that's when people actually realize that, if we couldn't see, handling money would become such a big issue. So then for physical impairments, we get them to, we tie up their hands and we ask them to write with their feet. We tie up one hand and ask the people to wear their shirt using only one hand, button the shirt, then unbutton the shirt. So they get an understanding of what that feels like and how difficult it can actually be, Sometimes in the past, we also had people using a wheelchair or using crutches, but that sometimes that becomes very difficult. And we need to have people who are appropriately trained in the use of the appliances. So therefore, we don't always do that activity, but we do these other activities. Then we have a memory game. So to help understand, intellectual impairments and dementia. We have what is known as a mirror maze. So typically, with people who have dyslexia, they see things inverted, right? As if it's in a mirror. So what we get people to do is look in the mirror and do a maze, or we ask them to read words by looking in the mirror. So we get them to do so that they get an understanding of what it feels like to have a learning disability. Then we've done some activities where people are experiencing auditory hallucinations to get a sense of what it feels like to have a mental illness. Then we had feedback loops, which is for understanding hearing impairment, where we get people to listen to music or listen to something else and try and figure out what another person is saying in front of them. Right. So we use various kinds of activities which are designed to get people to have some small experience of what it feels like to deal with an impairment. Right. And we encourage all our participants to participate in all the different activities. Each activity is followed by a little discussion, So we don't just do the activity and say, "Acha bhai, ab jao." We tell them, no, you please come, you join us. Tell us what you felt when you did the activity. Was it easy? Was it difficult? What kind of problems did you face? What were the thoughts that ran through your mind as you went through these exercises, right? So we get people to understand. There also sometimes they have questions to clarify about specific types of impairment. So we have this conversation with each person once they finish the activity, and then we also ask them to we also ask people for written feedback. So we have a debriefing session which is conducted upon completion of all activities. So we have everybody, once they finish all the activities, we tell them to go to a separate room. We have a discussion with them about their experience and about their understanding. I'll talk a little bit about this in a little while. I want to show you some pictures of our activities. So here you see the one in the front is a student who is doing cane walk, trying to utilize the cane to go for a walk while he's blindfolded. In the second one, there is an activity where, again, this person is expected to understand what this person is saying, despite the fact that they can't hear anything because they've got noise cancelling headphones on, right? So this is some of the activities. Then here we have one of our staff who's trying out wearing a shirt with only one hand. And we have our student who is himself someone with an impairment, supervising what is going on, and then having a discussion on that. Then one of our senior faculty here is doing the mirror maze. So you can see this is you get these maze things in the activity books for children. So she is doing that by looking in the mirror. And then here at the bottom, we have somebody who's doing foot writing. So this person is trying to write their name by holding the pen in their foot, right? So these are some of the activities that we do. Right? Then about the debriefing. Right? right? So the debriefing process is done in small groups after all the activities are completed and facilitated by volunteers to discuss and share. So one is the feelings and thoughts of participants undergoing the series of activities. What did they learn from the activity about living with an impairment on a daily basis, and what will they take away from this experience? The idea is to help people ask questions of themselves. It is to help people rethink ideas that they previously had, or to start thinking about something that they have never thought about. Right? So the reflections on the normal abnormal dichotomy and the notion of normality, because people, all of us tend to use the word normal very easily without thinking what is the meaning of normal. Abhi ye normal hota kya hai? If each person is unique and different, then what is normal? So helping people question the notion of normality, and then the normal abnormal dichotomy. Then how does impairment or disability, how is it experienced differently over the lifespan? How is it different for children? How is it different for adolescents? How is it different when you acquire it in old age? So having some discussion about that and to develop an understanding about that. And then also about how families are impacted by having a disabled member amongst them. Because very often one finds, at least I have found as a social worker going into communities, that, people are reluctant to interact with families who have disabled family members. They don't want to talk to that family. They don't want to interact with them because they say, "Arey, ye to humko sirf apne disabled member ke bare mein batayenge, ya fir inki family mein to kuch gadbad hai." So there is a lot of exclusion that happens to the family also by virtue of having a person who is disabled amongst them. So how families are impacted. So, we try and cover all these different aspects during our discussion. And then finally, when we talk about moving towards inclusion, the idea is that, the debriefing and discussion of the Challenging Challenges workshop, the idea is to help participants become aware of the exclusion faced by persons with disability, and also the ways in which participants themselves are part of the process of isolating and excluding disabled people. Sometimes, and this is something that has happened, that, people having one kind of disability have also discovered how they exclude people having other kinds of disability, because they do not understand the issues that that person faces, or the fact that they may face sometimes more severe issues, right? So discuss the participants' own exclusionary actions as well as language. So what kind of language to use? How is language exclusionary? What have they observed around them about this? So to bring that out and to discuss that with participants, help participants think about what role they can play in facilitating inclusion. If you want society to change, then change begins with oneself, right? Change begins at home. So what can that individual do to contribute to change? And then reflecting on possible individual and collective role in changing the current situation of persons with disability. So having a discussion on that aspect. Finally, when I think about inclusion, I say that, the need is not just to address issues of physical access to prevent exclusion, but also issues related to social barriers that result in exclusion, because social barriers are equally important. People's belief systems are equally important. People's behavior is the most important, because, I'll share a very small experience with you. My mother, as I mentioned, is an elbow crutch user. And we had traveled with her to Egypt, and we went to this mosque. It was a mosque where prayers were still going on. And at that time, of course, there was no prayer happening. We went to visit the mosque. And in that mosque, the custom was you have to take off your shoes and go. So when my mother explained to the people who were there, at the mosque, at the gate, that, I cannot, I'm not able to take off my shoes. I cannot walk if I take off my shoes. So, what they did? They did something beautiful. These people didn't, and we didn't really know the language also. So these people said, wait. They told her to sit on this little chair they had. This man went out, came back with 2 black plastic bags. He came, he put the plastic bag on my mother's shoe, tied it, and told her, now you can go. And so that's how we went and visited the mosque. And it was very simple. Nothing much had to change. And yet it was about the way those people who were at that counter thought about people with disability. I have visited, whenever we have to, if by any chance, you visit a temple or something, I have never seen any temple ever accommodate a person with disability having the same condition as my mother. They will still insist that she takes off her shoes. Whether she can walk or not, whether she can stand or not, is something they never bother to care about. So when I see this, I say that it's the social barriers that are most important. It's how people think. It's not just about the ramps and the physical accessibility. So I think that is a very important step that needs to be taken to end exclusion. There is a need to connect with and educate multiple stakeholders through interventions such as challenging challenges, workshops on disability sensitization. So this includes teachers, police personnel, community health workers, local government officials, village level people, village level officials, municipal corporations, school children, professionals of all kinds, so that they develop a perspective on disability and disability-related exclusion as a social issue. So I will stop here. I've been a long time. Your questions, your reflections, and your thoughts, please. Yeah, can I stop sharing? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Yes, Sumit, please tell me.
Sumit, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yes, it was really nice to listen to you. The lecture was well structured, and the way the force with which you were talking, actually it was going direct into the heart. So I must congratulate for such an emphatic lecture. And I am from Punjab, and I work in a college. And you are, you have employed certain activities. It just reminded me of Miss Bean's school, when I used to read in my childhood, one of the stories of School for Sympathy. And, what I really want that if you can share these activities with all of us so that
Sure, Sumit, I will be very happy to do so. I will be very happy to engage with you individually, and maybe we can have a discussion, and I can send you some of these activities and we can talk about it. We have a little manual that we have prepared that we use. So I can send you some of that material, and maybe we can talk about it before you actually go and execute it. But sure, absolutely,
It was really, ma'am, it was really nice to,
Sumit sir, you are not audible.
I have put down my
feel. Yes, ma'am. I've got your email ID.
Yeah. So, you can please contact me, no problem. I am a little tied up for the next 8-10 days, but other than that, we'll be very happy to connect.
No issues, ma'am. I'll be definitely in touch with you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Anyone has any questions for the ma'am? You can put it in chat box or unmute yourself to ask question.
I think not.
Ma'am, we don't have any more questions.
Yes.
That's fine. That's fine.
Everything is clear, ma'am.
Tired.
No, everything is clear.
Yes,
there is no doubt, ma'am.
Your PPT was very explanatory, and then your and deliveries. It was
Right.
your delivery. You made the delivery in a very interesting way, and with your practical experiences that cleared everything. So now I would like to invite Jayant sir from Bhumika Trust to give a vote of thanks.
Yeah, so it's a great, indeed, an immense pleasure for me to deliver the vote of thanks to Dr. Madhura Raj ma'am. So it's an indeed pleasure for me to thank you for coming and giving your precious time for us and explaining all the things, your real time or the practical life experiences or the practices that you pick up either in this campus or around it. So it was a great listening to you once again, because that's again that I'm listening to you. I think so. I'm listening to you a second or third time maybe. So I've heard you a lot of times, and but the others might have not. This might be a first experience for the others to come in. So that was really a good experience for me. So hope to see you in more coming events and coming up. So thank you for everyone to come, for the supporting staff at the backend staff, for the technical staff, and to all the volunteers for the anchoring and every other staff. So thank you everyone for coming and joining us for the day today. We will be joining us back tomorrow once again at 10. So thank you, ma'am, for coming.